Hopefully that is not going to be on screen because that's going to bother me. Okay. Are we ready, Catherine?
Yes.
Perfect. Welcome the small and mighty group this Thursday. And I think we're in June. What? Second day of summer. So welcome, at least for us northern, those in the US or Canada, in the Northern Hemisphere. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and what opportunities we're going to be seeing in the AEC industry. So welcome. Thank you for showing up today. A couple things, expectations, since I always forget to do these. Be active, participate. We're a small group today, but either way, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. We'd love to see your face. It can be kind of boring when you're giving a presentation to a bunch of computers. So we would love to see who we're talking to on the other side. Also, related to questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I will be monitoring that for Catherine throughout. There are no stupid questions. If you don't want to put them in the chat and want to come off mute and ask, do that as well. I'll be giving Catherine some time kind of at the end of the entire presentation, but also throughout to ask questions. So feel free to ask them as they come up. You don't have to wait till the end. The recording will be sent out tomorrow is my plan. And as we get started, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, your name, your role, anything else you would like to put, location, something fun you're doing this summer. Hopefully staying cool. It's starting to warm up a little bit of everywhere. So those are a little bit of today's expectations. For those that don't know me, my name is Angie Wolfe. I am the owner, founder, proposal manager, master trainer, whatever other titles I can give myself of Ideas at Dawn. We bring large civil engineering and construction firms a competitive advantage with their proposals to help them win more work without adding on more payroll. We provide turnkey proposal management, which includes writing, editing, graphics, 3D graphics, training, all to help those increased demands on your proposal staff. This afternoon, we have Catherine Lewis joining me. She brings 34 years in the AEC industry, started and has interest in the public policy and funding mechanisms, has a background in that, studied at Oberlin College. Now as a consultant, she helps AEC firms leverage the opportunities with their design and construction projects and helping them identify not only opportunities because of her interest with public policy, but also helps them win that work through the execution. And we're ready to get started. Are you ready, Miss Catherine?
I am. So I will request.
Yes.
Control. Okay.
Perfect.
Great. Well, thank you, Angie. It's great to be with everyone today. We'll highlight some of the programs. We can't go into all programs in depth today, but we'll highlight some opportunities that for project funding that would probably be of interest to the AEC community. And we'll provide some tools as well. Okay. Yes, so you'll see that 90% of the federal investments will actually be delivered by non-federal partners. So that means states, cities, counties, local municipalities. The formula grant program, 60%. And some very creative cost sharing arrangements and combinations of loans and grant funding. So kind of something in there for everyone. So what's in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law? As you can see, roads, bridges, and major projects are at $326 billion, so by far the largest ticket item. But I'll just summarize for you some of the language that's on the White House press briefing room website about some of the thinking and reasoning behind the priorities in this bill. 173,000 miles of our highways and major roads are in poor condition. This bill is the single largest dedicated bridge investment program since the interstate highway system. 110 billion in new funds for roads, bridges, and major projects. So there were existing programs in place in the past, of course. This is a jump of 110 billion in that program alone. Historic investments in public transit. 24,000 buses, 5,000 rail cars, 200 stations, and thousands of miles of track, signals, and power systems need replacement. It's the largest federal investment in public transit in US history. Lead pipes. Up to 10 million American households and 400,000 schools and childcare centers lack safe drinking water. This bill will fund replacement of lead pipes. High-speed internet access. More than 30 million Americans live in areas where there is no broadband infrastructure that provides minimally acceptable speeds. Addressing the climate crisis. Clean energy transmission, electric vehicle charging station network, funds to protect against droughts, floods, and wildfires, the largest investment in addressing legacy pollution in American history, which is generally what is known as Superfund sites, the modernization of the nation's airports, ports, and waterways to support supply chains and reduce emissions. And the White House Infrastructure Implementation Task Force team has done an amazing job. And what they've already done is set up offices to address some of these key things that they want to implement. Clean energy demonstrations. The electric vehicle charging program has an office for the nationwide network. The high-speed internet and broadband effort has its own stand-up office. The modernization of the grid, an office on lead pipes and paint, an office on orphan wells, which are these leaking oil and gas wells that are sitting around just leaking gas and oil, and they're not being used, but they also are preventing land from being used for any other purpose because it's contaminated. And then there's a program to restore the Great Lakes. So all of that is already underway. In the first 2 months of the bill, and so it was signed in November. So in December and January, this is the money that's already been sent to states and to the US Army Corps of Engineers. So they're wasting no time in getting this money out. This is allocated money. This is probably not grant money. Grant monies are another part of the pots of money. So there's allocations and there's formula grant funding. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I want to share with you the tools that have been made available on the bill.gov website. This is the White House Task Force's work. They've done an amazing job. They've put together a guidebook, and the last update of the guidebook was May of this year. And as you can see in the table of contents, it's not organized by department, like Department of Transportation or Department or Environmental Protection Agency. It's divided by project type, and it's searchable, downloadable, and really interactive. It's a fabulous tool, and I hope you can see the page here. It's kind of small. This is a snapshot of the home page. You can see that there's a link to the guidebook for you to download it or read it. And then for each category, so for example, under transportation, it summarizes the program. 45,000 bridges are rated at poor condition. So it invests in that, invests in rail. It summarizes the transportation. And then if you go over here to the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that you can click on each of these links and it will take you to that page in the guidebook. So that looks something like this. For roads, bridges, and major projects, this is the page that comes up. It summarizes the challenge and solutions. It gives you an idea of the funding. There's the bridge program, 12.5 billion for the bridge investment program. And it talks about formula versus allocations, then 8 billion for infrastructure for rebuilding America. Freight and highway projects, and then 7.5 billion for the RAISE grants or rebuilding American infrastructure with sustainability and equity program. And then the mega projects. And it talks about then in the blue box what local agencies need to do or state departments of transportation or regional public agencies in order to identify their projects, come up with a plan, and apply for loans or grant money, or a combination thereof. So this is the guidebook, and then here you'll see on the website as well is the searchable part. So here there's a search function, and you can search on just roads or just bridges or just broadband or whatever you want to do. You can narrow this down, and you can also export it. So roads, bridges, and major projects. This is just the first allocations of money. It's actually a $318 billion program. Couple highlights. The National Highway Performance Program is $148 billion. The first round of funds for fiscal year 2022 was released to state transportation departments in December of 2021. And the next round of funding for fiscal year 2023 will be released in October of 2022. Same with the Surface Transportation Block Grant, which is $72 billion, same deadlines. So you'll see that not just these listed, but there are others as well that certainly the RAISE and infra grants. I'll just tell you a little bit about those. The Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, or RAISE, discretionary grant program provides a unique opportunity for the DOT to invest in road, rail, transit, and port projects that promise to achieve national objectives. So that's the program for RAISE. Eligibility allows project sponsors in the state and local levels to obtain funding for multimodal, multi-jurisdictional projects that are more difficult to support through traditional DOT programs. And then the infra program, known as the Nationally Significant Multimodal Freight and Highway Projects, awards competitive grants for multimodal freight and highway projects of national or regional significance to improve the safety, efficiency, and reliability of the movement of freight and people in rural and urban areas. So that's a summary of kind of what is going in as part of this. There's a huge bridge program. So if your company designs or builds bridges, there's going to be something that's built for you significantly. Passenger and freight rail. The big emphasis is on Amtrak. The Northeast corridor of Amtrak, as many of you probably know, has experienced a number of safety issues and accidents and tragedies over the years. Excuse me. And but it's not just the Northeast corridor, it's really nationwide. So they want to modernize Amtrak, really invest $22 billion in direct grants over 5 years. It's a huge investment. In the Northeast corridor, it's the largest investment ever. And not just wanting to improve the network that exists, but also bring the passenger rail service to regions that don't have it, so that rural and disadvantaged areas that don't have access to this type of transportation will have it. And also the goal is, of course, and throughout the bill, this is a theme, do everything more safely, more cleanly, more equitably. Mm-hmm. Okay, public transportation. Big effort to get people out of their cars in this bill. It's really amazing how, I mean, I'm in California and you still see so many people, one person in a car, and the traffic is terrible and the commute times are unhealthy. So it's a huge investment in buses, ferries, light rail transit, also accessibility. People who have disabilities don't often use public transportation because it's not accessible to them. So really trying to make things more equitable and accessible and cleaner, to try to get people the options to get at, to make it easy to get out of their cars. And so there's a huge investment in that. There's also going to be a unique program for transit-oriented developments under this particular program, where there'll be some unique funding opportunities for building mixed-use developments around transit stations. Under this bill, Of course, resiliency, electrification, and reduction of greenhouse gases are priorities. There are 4 formula grants that are going to be sent to communities and states. The funding goes out every year, but it's increasing by 30% under this bill. And the funds can be used for planning, operations, capital projects, as well as maintenance. And it's for transit agencies in both urban and rural areas. And then there's a state of good repair formula program. So rail, ferry, or bus transit fixed guideway systems, rail card stations, and hundreds of miles of track. And then a major expansion of funding for light and heavy rail expansion. Airports. Airports didn't get a ton of money, 25 billion, excuse me. And I surmise that some of that could be that their airports even that they have capital projects that are planned, many of them have them on hold. And largely that's due to COVID and uncertain ridership. And now, of course, the price of oil is a big concern. So, but it's, the discretionary grant program provides funding for airport terminals and airport-owned air traffic control towers. The funds can be used to replace aging facilities and improve passenger access. There are also, it applies to primary airports, cargo airports, and most general aviation or commercial airports. And it also can be used for runways, taxiways, aprons, terminals, intermodal projects, and access roadway projects. So, many of these projects might be just on the smaller side, but need to be done, and that's okay. So I wanted to just give you kind of an example. You may be asking yourself, well, how do I wrap my arms around what's going on in my local region? And how do I find out what projects are out there and have been awarded grant funds? Or how do I find out who's got a wish list of projects, and maybe I could talk to them about it? So what we did here in the Bay Area of California, we have the Metropolitan Transportation Commission is one of several transportation agencies in the area, but it's sort of an overarching agency. And rather than having compete for grant funds with their own list, and then BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, or the BART system has their own list, and Caltrain has their own list, they decided to go at it with a collaborative and cooperative attitude and get something from everybody's wish list on one master list that would be agreed to, that these would be the projects that would seek federal grant money. The Bay Area is going to receive $100 billion in federal discretionary funds under the 5-year law. And some of these projects will be, a few million to more than 500 million. In addition, for agencies who might have felt left out of this process of selecting these projects, there are other pots of money, and the MTC is being very generous in saying, we'll help you. If you're a county in Central Valley of California and you didn't get your project listed in here, but you have 8 bridges that need to be replaced, we'll help you figure that out. And so will actually the feds. If you go to the White House Task Force Infrastructure Implementation Team, and you'll see, I'll show you links that there are webinars that they've given on, it's 40-minute kind of bite-sized webinars on each topic. And you can kind of meet the people who are working to implement this law, and they will help you. If you're a public agency and you're trying to figure out how to finance your project, they'll sit down with you and brainstorm how you might combine a grant with a loan, or construct a plan so you can get your project built. So anyway, there are other pots of money, my point is, for local agencies as well, so that they can fund their projects. So the Biden administration criteria for the projects that qualify are that they need to be regionally significant and maybe uniting communities in some way, but also maybe even transformational or visionary. Promote clean energy and climate goals, absolutely. Provide jobs and economic benefit. And again, promote the inclusion of those who are disadvantaged historically. So this is the list they came up with. They whittled it down from maybe 30 or 40, maybe even 50 projects down to, I think this is 22 projects. And you can see that in fact, it is inclusive of other agencies besides MTC. This is the MTC list, but it's got BART, Caltrain, high-speed rail, the Port of Oakland. So you can see that they really tried to, and there was considerable debate. I attended the legislative committee meetings where these projects were being selected, and there were some very strong opinions about projects that were being excluded. One project that didn't make the list, but was, after much debate, was finally included sort of as a caveat or an afterthought, is something called Valley Rail Link, which is a huge effort to link up all the disconnected rail lines throughout the Bay Area to make them so that you don't have to get in a car or some other vehicle in order to get from one kind of station to another, like Amtrak to BART or whatever. So they're trying to connect. That's a huge program, and it's supposed to connect all the way to the Central Valley and into Sacramento. So it was considered too pie in the sky in terms of really being able to get the grant funding, and they didn't want to take grant funding away from other projects by putting their eggs in that basket, but there were strong opinions, so it ended up getting included at the very end of the day. So that's how this one local area in California, the Bay Area, approached these are large visionary projects, right? They meet the criteria. So this is one way to go about it. These are, kind of reaching for the sky kind of projects, but then there are all kinds of smaller projects that also can compete for funding, and other agencies will have their own lists. State departments of transportation will have their own list. It's hard sometimes to figure out exactly how to follow the breadcrumbs, but most public agencies have either a legislative liaison or government relations person or some sort of a planning, always planning. So and of course check out the capital improvement project plans, what they have planned, and then the question you just need to find out the answer to is what's funded.
So, Catherine?
Yes.
Will there be additional money going into BART Transbay? You have, in the previous slide, you showed BART Transbay. There's already an $85 million project. So that program is going to be enhanced by this one, right? This initiative. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Well, and the Link 21 project is, a very transformational and visionary project, and some people say pie in the sky. The new Transbay crossing, combined with sort of the 21 county Bay Area connectivity. But there are certain BART safety, concerns with the existing tunnel too.
Okay.
Yeah. And BART has contracts going out all the time. They're about to issue another round for their BART General Engineering Services contract.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and of course, all of these agencies have to come to the federal government, and when they apply for grant money, they have to have proof that they have planned their own finances such that they'll pay their share, that they've got the money. So yeah, great question. I mean, some of these have, I guess, BART, of course, ridership has been so much lower during the pandemic that they've got financial concerns, absolutely, to consider. So this is just some links that might be helpful. You can see the webinars, the White House briefing webinars link. There's some more sort of White House resources on various pages of the White House, including at the briefing room, has other resources besides the webinars. And then the DOT, Department of Transportation websites for the RAISE and the infra programs I thought might be helpful. Very good information on those two websites. And then thanks to NGO for the few photos that I sprinkled throughout. So I'm happy to take any other questions or open it up for some discussion and brainstorming, if that would be helpful. Or Angie, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, let's stop sharing. Let's go to questions first. I know, David, you had your original question. Anybody else have questions about what Catherine just went over and talked about?
I can dive into more detail on anything or attempt to. I actually have read a lot of the guidebook, especially on the pages that are of interest, for this presentation. There's so much in there that's just great information.
Catherine, can you big picture talk about the process of how money from the government flows to these agencies, and they're applying for grants, right? And what that process looks like. So then, right, they have the money, they create this project, they create a proposal SOQ or something that we then have to, like, kind of what that life cycle looks like from I don't say backwards, but right from the start to where we would then come in as proposal people.
Sure. So what would happen would be initially there would be a decision on the part of say a city or a county of, we need to get this bridge built, or we need to get this roadway widened, or we need to get this municipal airport upgraded, or we need a new terminal there, whatever the projects might be. And so there are some monies that are allocated to the states for them to then distribute to agencies. So you might say, hey, Caltrans, you got a pot of money from the federal government. Can I have some of it? Maybe you'd succeed in that and maybe you wouldn't. But what you can also do is say, okay, I have this pot of money available to spend on this bridge replacement, and I need this much money from some other source. And so you go out and see what kind of grant programs are available. So now there's the bridge program. So you would apply to the bridge program. You would prove that you had your $10 million and I need another $10 million for this bridge. So then you get some sort of that. So that process takes a while. You've identified your projects. You have a grant application deadline. So you have to do your grant you have to write your grant application. Might need some help with that, and then you submit it by the deadline, and then you'll hear back in maybe a month or 6 weeks whether you were granted any money, and you'll get some kind of confirmation of that, maybe via email, but you won't have the money yet. So an example is I talked to the city of San Ramon recently because they have a pedestrian bridge that they're planning to build. And I said, when are you planning to issue your RFQ? How are you doing delivery? Are you going to do design build, design bid build? It's going to be CMGC, what's going to be? And my contact there said, well, it's interesting, they're actually, and I need to look into this more, apparently there are earmark funds that made it into the Senate bill. The earmarks that were in the House version of the bill didn't make it into the Senate version of the bill, but the Senate version of the bill ended up with some earmarks, and I need to find that list. But she said, we've been promised earmark money from the federal government. All we have is an email. We don't have the money in hand. We hope to have the money in the hand by late summer. So here it was, this was late May. So she's anticipating 2 or 3 months before they see the money. And then she said, at that point, once we have the money in the bank, we will do an RFQ. So I would say if you want to get out ahead of RFQs and be proactive rather than reactive, you want to contact your favorite local agencies and say, what do you got planned? What is the funding situation like? And maybe even how can I help you with that? But you want to, the moment the money hits their bank account and they start putting together their RFQ, because they're not going to start writing their RFQ until they have the money, because there's no point. What if they don't get the money? Mm-hmm. But, you should be talking to them before they get the money, so that, they're going to give you the heads up, or they'll be expecting you to be checking back. Do you have it yet? Do you have it yet? And then, can I help you write your RFQ now?
Right.
So yeah, so it can take several months between sort of application, forming the list, doing the application, finding out whether you got the money, actually receiving the money, and then issuing your RFQ, RFP, whatever that might be.
Okay. Awesome. Great explanation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What other questions for Catherine before I go back to a few of my slides to finish up? Anything specific? Go ahead.
we didn't touch at all on really water. And, you know, there's water infrastructure money in this bill, and that's I think a whole nother, you know, few slides. So I'm planning to look into that anyway for a client who expressed an interest in having me look into that for them. So I can certainly share just the slide deck later if that's of help to anyone who's on this call or who RSVP'd.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody, feel free to put your question in the chat or be brave like David and go ahead and ask your question. Anybody? No? Great job.
So Catherine,
Yes.
you mentioned that companies, local construction companies, can assist probably their regional agencies in preparing an RFP or RFQ. Do you have any suggestions on how they would go about doing that?
Well,
Capture.
I've been asked by a few public agency clients to write RFQs for them. One hopes that if you're asked to do that, it increases your chance of actually winning it when you respond to your own RFQ. Not always, but it's a privilege to be asked to help. And if you're, you know, someone the client trusts, like for example, we have something in California called geologic hazard abatement districts that are state level agencies that are set up to address any manner of movement of water or earth that affects geologic stability. And they basically are assessment districts that collect funds like a part of it's on people's property tax bill. It's an assessment, a couple $100 a year, goes to a fund, and they're in regions. And so we had a client who was the city of Fairfield who didn't really know anything about what they call GADs or GHAD. And so, but they wanted to establish one. So they asked, when I was working with NGO, they asked us to write the RFP because they didn't know the language of what to request, you know, and we did end up getting the project.
Okay, so some companies can then assist in writing the RFP, but what in your experience helps a company to position themselves to win the contract besides that?
Well, it's rare to get a chance to help write the RFP, especially with a public agency like Caltrans or BART. They're just, they're not going to ask for help because they want to make sure that they're making it a very transparent and level playing field. But I think what you need to do is establish yourself as a trusted provider. I mean, clients work with who they like and trust. And if you go into a relationship with a client, maybe you're inquiring about their plans, but you're also trying to do whatever you can do to be helpful. And if you can find ways to be helpful and and genuinely interested about what keeps them up at night, and ask more questions that will be about them than about what they can do for you. I think that's how you build trust. And I think that's what you have to do first. I mean, the other thing though, it's chicken and egg, trying to get a contract with Caltrans. Well, you don't have any Caltrans experience. Well, how can we get any Caltrans experience if you never give us a job? So, and I've asked that question, but I remember we were submitting to the city of Napa for like the 4th time and never got the contract. And finally, they sent out another RFQ for another 2 or 3 year contract on call. And I called them up and I said, you never pick us. We keep submitting, you never pick us. And the woman said, well, we have some new staff around here and we're looking for new blood. So please submit, we'd like to see your submittal. And we did submit that time and we won. Then we had to figure out how to negotiate the contract because they didn't want to give a limit of liability, but that's another story. So yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you just have to call them up and say, who's your incumbent? If they'll tell you, but you can ask, who's your incumbent? What do you like about them? What do you don't like about them? Where are your pain points? And of course, once the RFQ or RFP hits the street, then the iron curtain comes down and you can't talk to them. So you have to get out ahead of it.
Okay.
Which is the importance of understanding this funding and legislation, because you can know what projects are coming and who's getting some money and being able to focus some efforts based off of where funding is occurring or
Absolutely.
given. Okay. Other questions before I go back to my PowerPoint?
David's got great questions today.
He does. He always does. Did you see his face light up when he started talking about geologic hazards?
I did.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with geologic hazard abatement districts, David? He's muted.
Not specifically that program, but I spent 25 years in the U.S. Geological Survey.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yes, it is. Okay, so let me share my screen real fast. And for those of you who give you a little bit more time to come up with any other questions. Okay. All right, so something special for the 9 of you or others that watch the recording that I've developed. It's the only document that you'll need to manage your proposals. And it's that opportunity to get a leg up on your competition. So what I've developed is a plug and play proposal management plan. It is a Word template. This QR code should take you to the hyperlink or hyperlink, internet, website, whatever, to get the interwebs to get there. So why you should look at buying it. It gives you that plug and play calendar so you can avoid those 25th hour bottlenecks. Gives you example message and theme statements so you can start every project on a roll and not with a blank slate. Identifies some data points to capture with your selection committee. So once you've identified those key projects that Catherine talked about, you can start talking to your selection committee, your client, to understand, right, what Catherine talked about, how to win them over before you even get that proposal. Also has a place to track action items, schedules, evaluation criteria, understand our owner's issues that you identified before the proposal came out, hot buttons, some key actions to win, style guides, and so much more. I will put the link in the chat here in a minute, but $97, it is guaranteed to make your life easier. So if you have an important proposal come up that's a must win, I would encourage you to purchase it. So all of that information you need in one document, save time and focus on the more important aspects and not going crazy with trying to manage everything in multiple documents. So that is the beauty of this one. And buy it once, use it 500 more times or more. No need to, keep buying it. So here's the link if you would like to purchase it. Any other questions for Catherine regarding the bill, Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or any of the funding mechanism processes? She's an expert. Feel free to pick her brain. We have 15 minutes left. Anything else? Thank you, Tammy. Anybody else have questions? David, any other ones for Catherine?
I can ask about questionnaires, Catherine. Some states have questionnaires for engineering companies that would participate in this program. Georgia, for instance, has about 65 NACIS codes or SIC codes. You recognize or identify the other states that have similar questionnaires to qualify contractors?
I don't know if it's, well, maybe it's questionnaires or in California, you're required to have what's called a DIR registration number. And yes, we have the NAICS codes as well. I think those are federal codes.
Yeah, these are not exactly NAICS codes. They're each state's own code.
No, California has various things that you have to register for. But in terms of service type, California doesn't have its own codes.
Oh, okay.
It uses the federal codes to the extent that the codes are required at all, which would be for basically state level submittals. So Department of Water Resources, Department of Transportation, or Caltrans. BART uses the federal forms. So we need those for SF 330 submittals generally.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we need them for other kinds of submittals, but generally we don't. But the DIR registration number has just been around for 2 or 3 years, and everybody is required to have that, even if they're a design firm and not a construction firm.
What about CM, construction management companies?
Everybody.
Everybody? Okay.
Everybody. Everybody in the consulting world. Even I have a client who does public relations and public outreach. They have to have one too. Even though they're not designing anything and they're not building anything. So basically everyone in the consulting world that has anything to do with projects, vertical or horizontal. So if you're a printing company, you don't have to have one, right? Or if you're a travel agent, you don't have to have one.
Catherine, how do you track or understand which funds have been allocated? Is that tracked somewhere on build.gov or any of the websites to know how much like remaining funds are left in any of those buckets?
Yeah, on the build.gov site in resources there are a whole bunch of links as well as just the guidebook, and the guidebook is updated on a regular basis, but you can find out how much has been allocated thus far and how much is left and the timing of when the next grant application deadlines are over the 5-year period of the law. So yes, the build.gov is a great place to find out how much money has gone out so far and how much is still left. Then the whitehouse.gov site briefing room website is also very useful. It's got some great tools. And then, you can actually reach out and get a response from live people. I've had people actually call me back and respond to my emails with my answers to my questions. I specifically asked a question about getting a project built, a bridge project built down in LA. And it's a private developer who wants to get $50 million to construct a bridge that will connect 2 communities. And it will be an important alternative route in that area for people to have access to the highway. So although it's being mostly funded by the developer, it will be a municipal bridge. And so I was trying to figure out what the best, was it raised? Is it something else? What was the best way to get that money? Turned out we couldn't get it earmarked, but we did, but it didn't make it into the Senate version. Yeah, somebody called me back and followed up with an email to make sure my questions were answered.
It's better than the IRS.
Oh yeah. No, they're trying to make it very approachable, which is great. I mean, they've put a lot of resources into making this very accessible and navigable.
Right.
I mean, you do have to spend some time, but to wrap your arms around it. But hopefully this has been helpful in terms of kind of setting the table, laying the groundwork to show you the tools that are available. And then, as we go, I think they're going to continue to improve the way they roll things out. They haven't, as an administration, done a great job of communicating what they're doing here. And I think they could do better with that, because I think people would get more excited about it and take advantage of it. I think there are still small public agencies that don't know what they're supposed to do.
Right. Yeah. So Rita, the biggest resource for you will be the build.gov site. write Catherine on
Yes.
information and where to find anything. And you said, right, water's on there. What other industries, like big buckets?
Big buckets are broadband, Superfund sites, orphan wells, electric vehicle charging station network. Let's see, I mean, other than ones we talked about, which is roads, bridges, and major projects, passenger and freight rail, public transportation, airports. There's the ports and waterways. We didn't really talk about that. There's safety. There's going to be a whole program to replace railroad grade crossings to separate so that rail and cars are not intersecting because of the huge safety implications. People trying to drive around the arms when they come down because they don't want to wait, you know. So either have the rail line go above the road or the road go above the rail. And that's going to be a big program on under safety. I think it gets 37.6 billion or something like that. Modernizing the electrical grid is a big one. Resilience, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is getting a big pot of money for resiliency projects. So that's basically flood control, levees, and things like that. Yeah, Superfund cleanups, environmental remediation, and broadband. So those are the other major categories.
So the one I found interesting, the replacing lead pipes and paint. Which agencies would be going after money in that bucket?
Well, that's I believe that's EPA money, Environmental Protection Agency money. I think what you'd have to do is, and maybe this is something that's Googleable, if that's a word, is how have they identified where exactly the lead pipes are? I know they're in Detroit. I don't know where else they are, but it's a lot of people. And what did I read the statistics? Something like, I don't know, anyways, 400,000 households or something. 400,000 schools, like 30 million households, 400,000 schools and childcare centers have lead pipes. So, I mean, you'd have to not just replace the pipes in the building, right? Wouldn't you also have to replace all the conveyance from the water treatment plant, if there is one, or the river to, you know, how? So I would think that local, you know, agencies like local water districts that are in charge of maintaining those pipes, or, you know, receive ratepayer money for the water, contaminated water the people are paying for, those would be the agencies that would be maybe mandated to replace their lead pipes. So I mean, I think in the case of that particular program, I think it's not optional. So it's possible that there is maybe even the guidebook under that particular program, there might be something that says who's required to do it and by when. And then you would just have to, you know, figure out, well, does that mean they're going to open up a bunch of trenches and take out all the pipe, or are they going to line them with something else? You know, what are they going to do? I'm not a wastewater or water person, really expert, so I don't know how you replace an entire network of lead pipes. I mean, with what and how long does it take, and where do you begin? Do you begin at the source of the water, or do you start at the terminus of the water? And I don't know the answer to that, but that's a really great question to find out more about.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was that even made the list. I don't think I've seen that before, but I'm not one to peruse legislation like you, but it was new to me.
I'm kind of a wonk.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions for Catherine before we wrap up this afternoon?
Thanks for those great questions, Angie.
Of course. David, awesome questions.
And David, yes.
Rita, hopefully this helps you and doesn't overwhelm you too much. I would be overwhelmed.
Well, happy to, you know, have any follow-up questions or anything like that. If people think of it something, you know, going down a rabbit hole and like, should I change directions? You know, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Catherine. We'll call it a day. We'll send out the recording here probably tomorrow. And then you'll get a follow-up email with that. Also, we'll send it to you on LinkedIn as well if you were RSVP'd. We'll also include that link to the proposal management plan in case you lost it or didn't get a picture. Thank you all for joining us. Next month's webinar, not sure what it'll be on yet. I'm still working with the guest on what that'll be, but mid-July will be our timeframe again. So thank you all.
Looking forward. Thank you.
Enjoy, yes, enjoy your first week of summer. Stay warm, stay cool, all of the above, and get some vitamin D. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, Catherine.
Bye-bye.